This is the City of Urbana Human Relations Commission meeting for Tuesday, April 16, 2024. We will call the meeting to order and have a roll call.
Peter Resnick.
Here.
Greg Schroeder.
Here.
Shalini Smith.
Here.
Ann Panthen.
Here. Thank you. Do we have any additions to the agenda today? Nope. All right, moving on. We'll need to approve the minutes of March 26, 2024. I assume everyone's taken a look at them. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we'll move on. Public input. Are you not here to provide public input? Okay. All right. Welcome. Unfinished business. I don't believe we have any unfinished business this month. New business. So we are going to take a look at the workforce statistics. So I think the way that we've done it in the past has been helpful, where we do the sort of the omnibus approval and second, and then we'll have some discussion. So do we have a motion? Should we do that? Is that a good time to do it? Okay, all right. So we're going to back up for just 1 second. I have a statement to read. Okay. In the interest of transparency, one of the companies that we will be considering for EEO certification will be working with the Urbana Free Library. Shalini and I both work for the Urbana Free Library, and we would like to have it reflected in the official record that neither of us, me or Shalini, have anything to do with the overall decision-making for contract work at the Urbana Free Library. Our vote on this board is only for workforce data. So we would just like to have that reflected. Thank you. Okay, now we can do the motion.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion for the recommendations for EO certification or recertification. Furman Engineering, Inc. for 1 year. Clark Dietz for 1 year. Ingeborg Anderson for 1 year. Applied Pavement Technology Incorporated for 1 year. Stryker Sales, LLC for 2 years. She International Corporation for 2 years. Prairie Engineers, PC for 1 year. Gibbs Technology Company for 1 year. A&R Mechanical Contractors Incorporated for 1 year, and Firecat for 2 years.
All right, thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on any of this or any questions for the officer? Pete?
So this one is mostly informational because it wouldn't change the recommendation, which is for, well, it might, but I wouldn't change my decision on this unless someone wants to jump in. For Firecat, which is located in Troy, Michigan, and you have the statistics for Troy, Michigan, which has a surprisingly high number of Asian Pacific Islanders. The population is 26.5%. And this particular company, although they have a good-looking minority workforce overall, has 0 Asian Pacific Islanders on their workforce, which I found just kind of odd and surprising. I don't think that would change my take on giving them a 2-year approval. On the other hand, I didn't see anything in their paperwork that would have indicated why that might be the case, and couldn't figure out anything from just looking at Troy, Michigan. Was it that there was a particular population there that made that make sense? But I guess I put it to the other commissioners whether this makes a difference to us. It's out of town, so doing the research seems a little overburdensome, and they do seem to have a relatively diverse workforce, just it's not completely reflective. So just to put that out there for discussion.
Greg?
Following on to that discussion, I liked that there was heavy minority recruitment. This is FireCat. But it was focused on the unskilled category, where they lost minority manager clerical positions. And so while the numbers are going up, the distribution of power is shifting. Also, female numbers are really low. It's 10%. But again, those are mostly managerial positions. So it's like low numbers, higher power. Just discussion items.
The, you know, that the Asian population, I did not notice that, and it is,
And on my first go, and this is why I didn't submit a question to staff to ask about it, I just sort of autopilot go through the top level numbers, and it looked okay. And then it just popped out at me when I was reviewing them before the meeting, and I thought, oh, that's just odd. And I don't know if it's worth a question to them or giving them a 1 year because of that. It's just an odd number. And I agree with Greg that, you know, although we see this quite often, is the workforce distribution is often weighted managerial, skilled or unskilled labor, you know, tends to be where the most difference is. And it's a concern, but I don't know if it's enough of a concern. I don't know if staff has anything that they noticed about this, or
I did see that, but I was still impressed with their numbers because their staff is majority minority. And so I thought, you know, based upon our history of how we reviewed these, I thought they were doing really well.
and I tend to agree.
I can't speak for why the Asian population or the Hawaiian Pacific Islander population does not want to go into this field. I don't think we are able to speculate that on any one group.
Although I think, I mean, imagine the case where we get zeros across the board for minority population. Then we generally ask what kinds of good faith efforts you're making to recruit. You know, we don't on this commission presume direct discrimination, but we do presume failure to do certain things. And this was just the odd case.
I noticed that. I said, oh. But I can't, I don't know how to, I would not know how to answer a question about why there was a zero in the other categories.
Mm-hmm.
I would suggest that some of the questions that you have, just to add some more questions to the idea, is in Detroit, obviously the Asian population is many, many countries. And then there's the Oakland University there. So the population could potentially be reflective of student population.
Certainly the case in this town, we see that.
Exactly. And then also in the news quite recently, we're hearing that so much of the Arab population Arab American population seems to be concentrated in a lot in Michigan and Detroit area right now. So just a very interesting idea of who's looking for those jobs in these areas as well.
Absolutely, and right. It could be the demographics of who's looking for the jobs as opposed to a specific recruiting difference or a specific discrimination difference. And again, I mean, I'm not going to myself change the motion or introduce an amendment. It's just one of those that, it's an odd one.
I also have a thought on that also that just came to mind. The Troy population includes everyone, not just work able, meaning the 16 over.
Yeah.
So I could break down the 16 to 72 or 74, however you want to do that. But this is a representation of the entire population. That's including babies all the way up to 85, I believe, and beyond.
I also think that Troy is adjacent to Detroit, but it is not Detroit. And I don't, you've noted that public transportation is a hindrance. I don't know anything about their public transportation system, but, you know, there could be many factors that kind of add into why we see this, but I would not be inclined to drop it down to 1 year. I think maybe sticking with the 2, and then in 2 years, if they come back to us, we can, you know, match it up against this year and see what's happening.
I appreciate that you saw the transportation. I know but I do all this work. I'm like, I want to talk about it. The two cities are about 61 minutes apart, and by bus, and then 118 minutes apart. So that's the bus is 118 minutes. Public transportation is 61 minutes apart.
Yeah, and I think, you know, that's an hour. That's a challenge. And I'll bet you that those buses don't run all the time. I mean, I bet, you know, it could be a sporadic kind of thing. I think that has a big effect on some folks, so that I would say let's leave it at 2 and see what happens. Okay. Does that seem all right with everyone?
I'm good with FireCat on that. There were 2 others
Okay.
I wavered on. Prairie Engineers, PC, which we received an update on. So 16 hires, no minorities, which means they have 2 minority workers out of 80. Right. And then I couldn't remember, is Prairie Engineers or was it SHI that had the multiple locations? Prairie. That was Prairie. And so that's another case where, okay, if each location is only hiring 2 or 3 at a time, then it's hard to bump that bulk number up. But it's on us to then say, well, hey, what threshold is your collective ratio not making progress?
Like, because we had the same questions in the office, so we did ask for more information. They did provide us the breakdown, and I think you guys received that. But looking at the map and where they're situated, in many of their locations, it may be challenging to bring in any diverse representation. They do have a strong women representation, but and you look at them, most of the communities, most of their employment was less than either 14 or less, with 1 or 2 that was maybe a little bit higher. So it was kind of, I had the question, is, are we doing just where they're situated in near us, or are we doing a collective? Because some direction on when they have multiple locations, how would you like to see the information? Because it does impact what the numbers look like. If we were to look at one of the individual locations, it would, and the demographics for that location, it would clearly explain. So trying to figure out how do we best do that. Overall, it looks bad, but when you disaggregate the information, it kind of explains it.
So I guess the follow-up to that, as far as our guidelines, would be how would we then treat someone who had no locations here but was providing a remote service? To judge them equally based on that.
You're- We always look at the totality of their workforce, no matter what. I brought up the question about, we had with Busey Bank. Remember, when we had the question about theirs?
that's
So I
right.
was trying to compare apples to apples, and Tom told me no. And so we just said, provide all of the information, and then we looked at the disaggregated information, and it tells us a story, but still done with the collective. So either way are valid points.
And so, and and we're talking about Prairie. Pete,
Yeah. I mean, we are giving them 1 year, correct?
Right.
Was the recommendation. I mean, my gut is, the 6 months is only when we think something's gonna happen in 6 months. I would certainly ask in this particular case, they're gonna get a letter saying, we have concerns about the numbers and, we expect to see good faith efforts. You know, is this a renewal or is this a new one? Yeah. It's a new one.
renewal, general.
They had a 1 year.
12 months ago.
They had a 1 year 12 months ago, and it hasn't moved.
And was the 1 year, you may not know this, but was the 1 year last year, it was only 1 year because of this same situation? Or was there a different reason for a 1 year as opposed to a 2?
We do not have the specifics with us right now, but
Okay.
in general, this is the same kind of trend where the same group has been reacting the same way. I think one thing about the breakout is that some of the turnover are in very small towns. If we were seeing something in Kansas City specifically, or Champaign-Urbana, then I think maybe we'd have to ask some newer questions.
So are we good with the 1 year? Do we want to, since they've had, this is the second time they've had 1 year, do we want to, like, do something different? Or do we want to wait and find out why they only got one last year? Greg?
If we wait, as they're on a 1 year issue last April, that would put them out of cycle.
Okay. Yep.
Not saying that's a reason not to wait, but, I mean, I think I'm still comfortable with a 1 year,
With the letter.
and I don't know, in your notes, do you track reasons for our certification recommendations?
Only if you've seen something very specific in the minutes where somebody made a point that needed to be noted. Otherwise, it's kind of a collective as we see it. Like for now, I would be making notes that we've asked about both SHI and we've asked about Prairie Engineering. So that's the kind of thing that I would say, and potentially, if we did say something, hear something last year, it would be in the minutes, we could pull them back up.
And there would also, you would also have a copy of the letter. If you sent them a letter requesting certain things, you would have that as well.
Yes, and that is really, it's pretty rare. We've said, we have a sort of a generic thing that was usually happening all the time, but when we've had some very specific comments made where one of the commissioners or more had said, let's make sure we tell them this, then that is definitely something that we do put into a letter.
Okay. Well, I would suggest that we send them a letter with some questions, you know, I mean, they had 10 separations and they hired 15 and they couldn't find a minority among to fill in, so that isn't great, I don't think. So anyway, I'm fine going with 1 year with a letter, asking them some questions. Does that seem reasonable to you guys?
If we do the request for information with the 1 year approval, I mean, you're going to send a letter. Are we going to get back anything, or they've got their 1 year, they're going to sit on it? I mean, we could, if we ask the question, we hope that they will act in good faith and get back to us and tell us what they're going to be trying this year. Did they come back with anything in particular this past year that we know of? Because that might be a reason to do 6 months for them, is to say, within the next 6 months, we'd like to see a plan for, you know, or an explanation of why your circumstance is an odd one, which it may very well be, but we'd like some documentation in the file.
Because of the numbers that were very low on the totals when we first got the packet,
Yep.
that's when we went back and we asked for a breakdown of how many branches or units do you have? And so then they gave us the map and those different charts. Now, they gave us a chart for every unit.
I saw that.
But then
yep.
for turnover, they gave us only 6 charts because they only had turnover in 6 out of the 11 spaces. And so they were trying to fill in the gaps there. And I don't know that the packet has as much information as you might want or need next time for what their plans are for additional recruitment. But they did talk about it in general, but it's not
It
dynamic.
wasn't terribly specific. Can I make a motion for a friendly amendment? Well, I don't know that I can, but maybe Greg can. You know, to maybe do the 6 months and get some more information from them in the meanwhile.
I'd like to make a friendly amendment for,
Yep.
still discussing, sorry.
There is one paragraph that they added to the, and I haven't looked at it today, but there was one paragraph that they added to the update that just said what they had been doing for good faith efforts to expand on the original question. When we asked for more information, we said, you wrote about A, B, C, and D. We'd like to know more about D. And that's what they did in that new paragraph. So if you want to take a glance at that in your packet one more time before moving forward.
Do you have what page that is? Because I'm. 8? Sure. Yeah, I think that's what this is.
Okay, I'll just go ahead and read it. It's short.
Okay.
The job postings recruiting included career fair at Missouri S&T, SIE, SIUE Career Center to post for surveyor in training, NSBE, which is black engineering, and St. Louis HBCU Harris Stowe, ZipRecruiter and LinkedIn Jobs, internal referrals. The added job postings recruiting will include specifically target the top MSIs with engineering programs. MSIs, I don't know that one.
Minority serving institutions.
Thank you.
I vacillated with, this was one that I paused on and waited for more information before I made the recommendation. And I even vacillated on, because I thought that was enough, in my view, that you're trying to give the 2 years. But I said I would pause and say, let's stick with the 1 year and see how we're doing. Because they are trying, but we can at least look and see. And we looked at some of the websites of the universities that are near them. And one was Washington University in St. Louis. And they have an engineering program, and they also have, what was it? The conference, it was the National Conference for Black Engineers, Black students. And so we watched that, and all of their students are going to this conference, and they have choices to go anywhere. And so it might be challenging, even though they're trying, to get minority engineering students to, you know, come to their organization, because they're looking at Dell and they were looking at some international companies. And so we thought that was worth saying at least a year, because they are trying.
They are, in fact, a minority of the population by definition. So, yeah, they're a small company in a relatively big sea here, so.
So you have a friendly amendment. Are you withdrawing it, or are you leaving?
I withdraw the incomplete friendly amendment.
Okay, so we will go with 1 year as suggested.
And, you know, I mean, the letter this year can include, we understand you're making attempts, but the numbers are so skewed that we really would like to see your ongoing work on this when it comes up for renewal next year.
That sounds good to me. Any other discussion?
No.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. No friendly amendments. And all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you for that thoughtful discussion. The officers' report.
For this month, there are currently 2 active complaints, and I did want to make special note that in March, in my March report, I stated that I was working on 4 more when that would lead someone to believe that there were 4 complaints that I was working on, but those were actually informal inquiries, and I was working to see if they met the standard in order to become a formal complaint. And so I wanted to clarify that. And since that time, one of them has actually become a complaint, which is why we now have 2 active. And the other ones are reflected in the informal complaints. And 2 were about a public accommodation, whether businesses discriminated in providing goods and services. 2 were not under the jurisdiction of the Office of Human Rights and Equity. And then there was a 5th one that was a tenant property management issue. I met with 2 potential new HRC members. We received only 1 application and sent a positive recommendation to the mayor's office. It will be considered for appointment at the April 22nd City Council meeting. And I just want to share that Vice Chair Smith joined me in that interview when we interviewed that applicant, and we were both in agreement that this would be a great name to move forward. And then as of, I believe, 4:30 today, we did reach out to the other applicant, and he sent me the application last week. However, I didn't receive it, and it wasn't in my spam, and it wasn't anywhere that I could find it. And so I reached out to that person and said, here is my email, because my guess is that perhaps something was mistyped or something, because I didn't receive it. And so hopefully he will send that back also. And then I attended the spring Illinois Municipal Human Rights Association meeting. That is my counterparts throughout the state of Illinois. We have 7 members that attended that. And we also had a HRC member from Decatur join their representative. We hosted the meeting, and after sharing what each office was working on, we had a presentation from the Illinois Department of Human Rights office, reviewing some of the new updates from the state. We have reviewed the Office of Human Rights and Equity pages for the new updated website for the city, and we're going to be adding a lot of our documents that will be able to be accessed with just a click. And the Know Your Rights information, we're finishing up that, where we've delivered to those that have 10 units or more. We've mailed out those who are not in Champaign County or in Illinois, and now we're gearing up to email all of those that are within Champaign County in Champaign, Savoy, Urbana. And I think Tom has put that email, gotten that email together for us. And so it'll be a bulk email that goes out. I spoke with the Salvation Army case manager concerning one of their clients. They had an inquiry about housing discrimination, and it wasn't in our jurisdiction, but what we ended up doing is having a nice long conversation, and they have different activities that they do and programs that they do, and so they've invited our office and the Champaign office to go set up a table and to be able to talk to their clients as they're receiving those services, have a table outside somewhere where we're able to talk to people as they come and go. We haven't set anyone up yet, but that is something that I'm hoping that we're able to do to recruit, mainly recruit, but also to share what people's human rights are. And I would welcome any one of the members to join me at any time.
Thank you. And if you will let us know when that tabling is happening, I'll bet we can find someone to join you. And the Salvation Army, where is it now? Is it still on Market Street? Is that where
I believe so.
their main? Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Anything else from the commissioners? Greg?
I believe we need to discuss scheduling.
We are looking at Monday, the 22nd, for the potential appointment of a new commissioner, which would, if everybody else is here besides yourself traveling, we potentially could have a quorum. Would you like us to try to schedule a time, though, that you can be at one or both of those meetings?
When you say one or both,
Yeah.
are you talking about what?
The May meeting and the June meeting, I think you were thinking you would not be at either one of those.
Ah, okay. I thought you meant the confirming of the new commission.
No.
I don't think we need to do that.
We hope that a new member will be in place for the May meeting, which is now scheduled for the 21st of
Nope.
May.
If we have quorum, no reason to poll and reschedule.
Okay. And you'll be gone May and June, is that correct?
Yes.
May 21st and June 11th are the scheduled meetings.
Yeah, I'm back the night of the 11th, so.
Okay. We'll wait. Okay, if there's nothing else, then this meeting is adjourned. Announcements. Oh, I'm sorry. We're not adjourned. Let me rescind that. Announcements. This commission has openings, and it's good to see that it doesn't say 5. It's just openings. And our next meeting is Tuesday, May 21st, 2024 at 5:30 p.m. right here. All right, and now we're adjourned.
Thank you.